Hi friends, once again welcome to this video tutorial. The presentation will be about photoperiodism and its importance. First of all, let's understand what we mean by the photoperiodism. Is a Greek word. Photoperiod, photos means light and periods means time period. So it's about the time period, the time period which a plant is exposed to. So by meaning photoperiodism, it's related to the light and the timing of the light. Duration of natural daylight experienced by an organism is known as photoperiod. So first of all, let's understand the photoperiod. So it is the daylight experienced by an organism. Now the question is the response of a plant, especially induction of flowering, to the photoperiod, that is called as the photoperiodism. So it's an ability of an organism to detect day length for initiation of a particular response. Since here we are totally discussing the induction of the flowering. But in fact, there are other photoperiodic responses. In addition to flowering induction, there is bud dormancy, there is control of vegetative habit, there is tuberization in potato and artichoke, and there is bulb formation. But this presentation will revolve around the photoperiodism, that is the induction of the flowering. So first of all, let's understand the duration of sunlight at various latitudes varies. So you have to understand first of all the photoperiods. We have short days, we have long days. So reasons for this is that is the response to revolution of the earth around the sun on its orbit, inclination of the axis of the earth to the plane of the orbit. You see the two things. One is the earth revolves around the sun, and second is the spinning of the earth, which is the rotation of the earth. So equator you will see has 12 hours of daylight constant round the year. So day length duration varies from season to season at all other latitudes. The day length of earth depends on astronomical factors. What are those astronomical factors? First of all is the axis of the earth. As a result of this, it is having 23.5 degree tilt towards the earth, towards the sun. So earth's axis has a 23.5 degrees tilt. Earth spins on its axis and completes one rotation in 24 hours. So rotation is in east to west direction. Rotation marks the day and night. During summer, in the northern hemisphere, the earth is tilted towards the sun, so days are longer than night. During winter, the northern hemisphere, earth is tilted away from the sun, so days are shorter than the nights. So that means the photoperiods are in relation to the rotation of the earth and also the revolution of the earth around its orbit. So photoperiods are complementary during the year in the northern and the southern hemisphere, but not in terms of solar radiations and temperature. Due to elliptical orbit of Earth, northern hemisphere gets less solar radiation than southern hemisphere. The northern hemisphere is farthest from the sun during the long days of its summer, so it will have less solar radiations. Southern hemisphere is closest to the sun during winter, so it will have more radiations and temperature. Let us understand it this way. See, this is the orbit, elliptical orbit. This is the earth, this is north and the south, this is the axis. If you will see, there is 23.5 degrees tilt. So whenever it is spinning around, there will be a rotation of it that will mark the 24-hour cycle, but this earth spins around it and that spinning covers the orbit in 365 days. So there will be different seasons. When it is in the summer, 21st June of summer, that will be the longest day. The sun is here, it's away from the sun, earth is away from the sun, and the north is facing towards the sun, and here you will find the longest day. So northern hemisphere gets more daylight. So this will be the autumn of this, that will be the September. The autumnal equinox will be there will be the rotation of the earth, and then it will reach to the winter. There you will see that winter solstice will be there, and the southern hemisphere gets more daylight now. Here northern hemisphere gets the more light and southern gets the less, but once it is facing towards this side of the orbit, it is the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere gets more daylight because northern hemisphere is away from the sun. And then comes the vernal equinox, that is the spring, and then this completes its whole year. So we experience the long days, we experience the short days on the earth. We have the autumn, we have the spring also. So it is in relation to the sun and the rotation of the earth around its axis, and the revolution of the earth around its orbit, which gives us the different seasons: the summer, winter, autumn, and spring. So summer solstice is June 21, marks the longest day of the year, as we have seen. Winter solstice, December 21, marks the shortest day. So autumnal equinox, and that is September 21, and the vernal equinox, March 21, the day and the night lengths are equal. So in 24-hour cycle, there will be 12 hours night, 12 hours day. So plant life responds to this diurnal shift of the availability of the sunlight. So you have the sunlight, you have the long days, you have the short days. So the plant life responds to this photoperiod. So to this diurnal shift of the availability of the sunlight, it determines their photoperiodicity. So we have made it clear that the photoperiods are there, and the plant life responds to this photoperiods. So if you will see from the sun, you have the equator, you have the north pole, you have the south pole, and here when the sun's light is falling on the north pole or on the south pole, it is basically diffused. Towards the poles, the sunlight strikes earth at a shallow angle, so and is spread over a large area, and so that energy is diffused. Same happens here. Towards the poles, more sunlight also is reflected by the atmosphere and the earth's surface when it strikes at a shallow angle. But at the equator and near the equator, sunlight strikes earth at a steep angle, delivering more heat and light per unit area at the equator. That's why at equator you will find always a temperature and good temperatures, and the sunlight is for more durations. So this is as the earth, this is the axis of the earth, this is the axis of the rotation now. So between the axis of the earth there is 23.5% tilt. So here comes the equator. This is the north pole, this is the south pole. This is in relation to the sun, and it is giving you the idea. If it is the equator, at equator you will find that there will be a 12 hours, so hours of the day length, and at different points you will see at March this equinox, and you will see at the June solstice, or at the September equinox, or this December solstice. You will find that different day, at different altitudes you find the different day lengths are there. So here it is 12 hours, and while as in some cases there will be less durations. This is as per their inclination towards the sun. So the hours of the day length varies in different months of the year and as per the latitude of the area. So this is how the photoperiods are there. So we have seen that the plants are responding towards these photoperiods. That is called as the photoperiodism. Is a response of the plants towards the photoperiod. That is called as the photoperiodism. So hence we see the response here. The one response, that is the induction of the flowering, the formation of the flowers, that is called as the photoperiodism, and it was first discovered by W. Garner and Henry Ellard in 1920 to 22 in United States Department of Agriculture for the flowering response of a Maryland mammoth. Maryland mammoth is a mutant variety of a tobacco, Nicotiana tabacum, to a specific photoperiodis. Mutant had a great promise for commercial use because it was a giant plant. So for tobacco, it was considered to have a good commercial use, promise for the commercial use. So they observed that giant tobacco plant failed to flower during summer. So it was not flowering during summer. Plant failed to flower and was always killed by frost. So no seeds were formed there. During autumn 1918, they moved the plant into a greenhouse. Plants flowered about Christmas time and produced seeds. Same plant was made to flower in summer now. During summer, by reducing the light hours with artificial darkening in the greenhouse. So they understood the photoperiod. So they reduced the summer photoperiod by having a darkening, artificial darkening in the greenhouse. Production of flowers in mutant tobacco plants paved way for entirely new era of plant sciences. They also tested the principle of photoperiodism in several other plants like soybean, glycine mix, cucumber in xanthium species. The discovery was practically utilized for controlled flower production in chrysanthemum. So it led to establishment of a multi-million-dollar industry because supplying year-round production of chrysanthemum blooms. So once they understood this in xanthium and in soybean, it was utilized in chrysanthemum because chrysanthemum was now made to flower round the year and supplying year-round production of the chrysanthemum blooms. So it opened the establishment of a multi-million-dollar industry. This is the giant Maryland mammoth plant. This is the normal plant. So Gardner and Ellard, they used these dark chambers, and then they made in 1918, in 1919 they made the dark house because they gave the dark periods to these plants during the summer. For that they made these dark chambers, and which were rotated on the rotators, and then they were taken inside. The plants were kept inside. So this was the experiment done by the Garner and the Ellard, which led to this discovery. These are the plants which flowered because they flowered in 15 August 1919 when they were exposed to 7 hours sunlight, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and wheeled into dark house. So they were given only 7 hours. And these are the plants which were kept outside in the long days of the summer. They didn't show any flowering response. So this was how photoperiodism was seen in case of, this is the Maryland mammoth, this is the Nicotiana tabacum giant, these are the flowers, this is the huge plant, and this is the Nicotiana tabacum, which is called as the Maryland mammoth plant also. So plants could remain vegetative during winter also. How? If exposed to extra light hours. So Maryland mammoth was experimentally found to be short day plant. So it was found to be a short day plant. Requires a day length less than a critical period of 12 hours in 24-hour cycle. That means by these experiments it was found that this Maryland mammoth its requirement is for the short days. So it was a short day plant. So it requires less than a critical period, that is less than 12 hours out of 24-hour cycle. So it is a late flowering variety when grown outside in Maryland. Hillman 1969 modified the definition of photoperiodism. He suggested response to the timing of light and darkness. Now let's understand the types of the photoperiodism. Since photoperiodism was discovered in Maryland mammoth and it was found according to the specific photoperiodic responses. Garner and Eller 1920 at the US Department of Agriculture, Maryland, recognized 5 categories of plants. The first is called as the short day plant, and the second is the long day plant, day neutral plants, short long day plants, and long short day plants. Let us discuss them one by one. Short day plants. They are also named as long night plants. The plants require short days for flowering. Day length should be less than critical period of 12 hours. Usually light period between 8 to 10 hours, less than 12 hours. So darkness more than 12 hours in 24-hour cycle. So that's why they are called as the long night plants. Uninterrupted dark period of about 14 to 16 hours is required. That's why they are also called as the long night plants. Such plants typically flower in the northern hemisphere because conditions are such. During late summer, usually after 21st June onwards to October. That time the short days are there. Example is chrysanthemum, coffee, strawberry, xanthium, Maryland mammoth, duckweed, and cosmos. These are the plants which are basically short day plants. So they are also called as long night plants because they require more than 14 to 16 hours of dark period. Experiments performed by Casey Hammer and J. Bonner on Xanthium stromerium cocklebur, a short day plant. It indicates that for flowering initiation requires long and uninterrupted exposure to darkness. So that means they need a darkness which should be uninterrupted, then to a continuous light. If dark period is interrupted with a brief exposure of red light, 660 to 650 micrometers wavelength, the plant fails to flower. Inhibitory effect of red light can be overcome by subsequent exposure with far red light, that is 730 to 735 wavelength. The critical night period or length of night is crucial than the long period. So by this experiment, let us explain this experiment with the help of this diagram. You will understand that in xanthium, which is a short day plant, it was found that the length of the night is very important, then the daylight is important. So this experiment was done. See, this is the overall 24-hour cycle. It needs 9 hours of light and 15 hours of darkness. So one experiment was done, 9 hours of light was given to it and 15 hours of darkness. The plant showed flowering. The second experiment was done. There were 15 hours of light, reverse of it, 9 hours of darkness, no flowering. And the third experiment was 9 hours of light, and then in darkness there was a flash of light, interruption of the dark period. So no flowering was there. That means you are disturbing the night there. It is also important there. And then it was seen that during light you are introducing a dark period, giving the night same, so flowering was there. That means the light period, if you interrupt the light period, that's not important. If you interrupt the dark period, that's important. So when 12 hours of light was given and 12 hours of darkness was given, no flowering was done. So this is how you see the flowering behavior of short day plants to various photoperiodic conditions. These are the plants which are short day plants. Chrysanthemum, these are the chrysanthemum. This is the xanthium stromerium. This is cosmos plant. This is strawberry plant. This is the coffee plant, where these types of photoperiods are responsible for their flowering initiation. The second one is called as the long day plant, which is also called as the short night plants. Long day plant, these plants require long photoperiods greater than the critical length of light, that's 12 hours. More than 12 hours is needed for them for induction of flowering. They usually flower when day length is longer than the critical period, which varies between 14 to 18 hours of day. Require small dark periods for flowering. Short night plants, that's why they require very short, so they have a less dark period. They are called as short night plants. In these plants, light period is critical. A brief exposure in the dark or a prolongation of the light period induces flowering. So they are called as a short plants. They usually flower during late spring, early summer up to 21st June. Growing abundantly in the northern hemisphere, example is Hyoscyamus niger, henbane, Spenecia, spinach, Beta vulgaris, sugar beet, Raphinus sativus, radish, Dianthus caryophyllus, coronation flowers, Avenus sativa, oat. These are the plants which are called as the long day plants. This is the Hyoscyamus niger flowering plant, and this is its capsule. This is Beta vulgaris, and these are the Spanish flowers, and this is the radish flower. These are Dianthus or the coronation flowers, Beta vulgaris, and the oats are the Avenus sativa. Avenus sativa flowers. So here it has been seen. Diagram with this diagram, it can explain it needs 15 hours of light, 9 hours of darkness. So out of this 24, 9 hours of darkness is there, so they require long periods of light. That's why they are called as the long day plants. So it will show flowering. If you give them a short 9 hours of light and 15 hours of dark, no flowering. If you give them 9 hours of light and in dark period you are giving the flash of light, that means flowering is taking place because you are extending the period. And similarly, you will see if more light is given at interruption is 8 hours of light, then interruption of 4 hours with darkness, then 8 hours of, then 4, so the flowering is there. Similarly, the more of the light periods is given, then the dark periods, they show the flowering. This is how flowering response or the behavior of long day plants to various photoperiodic conditions is seen. Then third one is called as the day neutral or photoneutral plants. They require no specific photoperiod for induction of flowering. Flower is almost all the photo. They flower in almost all the photoperiods, ranging from a few hours to 24 hours. Have no seasonality. किसी भी season में. Initiation of flowering mostly depends upon developmental status of the plant. Initiation of flowering mostly depends upon the developmental states of the plant. They may initiate flowering after attaining age in response to the period of low temperature, that's vernalization, or to periods, the temperature period, that's called as the thermoperiodism. Examples are cucumber, maize, roses, tomato, potato, and cotton. These are called as day neutral or photoneutral plants. So they follow the status of the developmental status of the plant, not to the particular photo period. We have cucumber flowers, flowering tomato, cotton flowers, and this is the red rose. In addition to this, there is one more that is called as the short long day plants. So as the name signifies, the plant requires short photoperiods for initiation of flowering, for the formation of the flowering, and long periods of light for blossoming. Example is trifolium or the clover. So for initiation, they require short. For blooming, they require long days. By means of long, and the blossoming is initiated by the short plants. So Lang 1965 added two new types, intermediate plants called as IP. These plants flower only within a definite range of light hours. No flowering occurs below or above this range. Example, Phaseolus, wild kidney bean, sugarcane, few varieties, and Ephortium, and then Mechania scandens. These are some of the plants which are called as intermediate plants. They show flowering only within a definite range of light hours. Flowering does not occur below or above this range. Likewise, these are the plants, flowering of sugarcane. This is the bean. These are the two plants which are showing these responses, that is to a particular, they are called as the intermediate plants. Then there is amphiphytoperiodic plants. Such plants remain vegetative during intermediate day length, induce flowering above and below the definite range of the light hours. Example is Media elegans. So this covers all the 7 types of the plants, though there are the 5 types of the plants, but 2 have been added by the Lang in the classification, five photoperiodic responses. But as per the Hillman in 1969, he suggested that 7 categories of plants are basically the modifications of 3 basic responses: neutral, short day, and long day. In each category, the 2 subtypes exist, namely obligate, which is qualitative, facultative, which is quantitative. Obligate flowers strictly under appropriate photoperiods. Example, soybean, oat. Facultative is independent of absolute photoperiodic treatments like sunflower, cosmos, cotton, and spinach. So this is the modification. Basically, they say there are only 3, but there are subtypes to it. And this covers the types of the photoperiodism. Photoperiodism, as we have seen, short day, long day, and neutral, short long day, long short day. These are some of the types. What is now the importance of the photoperiodism? The knowledge of photoperiodism is of great importance in agriculture, floriculture, and horticulture. As I have already mentioned, the knowledge of photoperiodism has opened a multi-million-dollar industry by way of chrysanthemum blooms round the year. But it has helped, the knowledge of photoperiodism has helped in prolonging the vegetative or reproductive stages of vegetables and ornamentals. Because you have understood the photoperiodism, and you can prolong the vegetative or the reproductive stage of a particular vegetable or a particular ornamental plant. So it promotes higher yield of tubers and rhizomes, or to yield more flowers or fruits. Under greenhouse conditions, by giving the favorable photoperiods, plants can be made to flower throughout the year. And being used by commercial growers for prized vegetables and flowers. Knowledge is helpful in determining the blossoming seasons of the plant. Example is some spring, some summer, some summer, and some autumn. These are the examples where you can determine the blossoming seasons of a plant. So it's highly useful in laying out gardens, orchards, and planning crop pattern of the area. Photoperiodic response being strictly under the control of genes. Some genes have been manipulated to enable plants to grow in different seasons. Chrysanthemum varieties have been developed to flower in all the seasons because there have been the modification of the genes of certain chrysanthemum varieties. They have been genetically modified and they can flower in all the seasons. So having seen first what is the photoperiod, how photoperiods are there on the earth, long photoperiods and short photoperiods, long days and the short days. Having understood it in relation to the earth and its rotation and its revolution around its orbit, then we have understood that plant life shows different responses towards these photoperiods, and which we have seen by way of understanding the photoperiodism in Maryland mammoth. And then we have seen the different types of the photoperiodic responses in the plants. And we have also understood what's the importance of this photoperiodism. And because we have understood the periods of the flower incissions and other photoperiodic responses, it has helped in establishing the number of commercial establishments by way of producing flowers around the year. So I hope, well, students, this was all about this topic, and I hope you have understood it. And till the next video is uploaded, be happy, be safe. Thank you very much for patient listening.